This is a Renew Studios Network podcast. Faithful, uplifting, family-focused.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Relationships and Reason.
Yes, everybody, welcome.
Welcome. Hey, before we tap into this wonderful episode that we got planned for you all, we want to make sure that you are following, you are subscribing, you all doing all the things to make sure that we are walking with you, journeying with you. Subscribe, like us on socials, and hey, if you are a sponsor that aligns with our brand and the work that we are pursuing, please reach out to us. Again, Relationships and Reason. Follow us on and watch and on all the areas where you view podcasts.
Yeah. So again, we're your hosts, Jermaine and Sophia. Today we are going to be talking about the power of small wins. How little steps lead to big change. The power of small wins. How little step leads to big change. You know, we live in a culture that loves the big announcement, right? The overnight success stories and the massive transformation. But the truth is, most real growth doesn't really happen in leaps, right? It happens in small, consistent steps that we take every single day, showing up every single day, doing the things when nobody's watching, when the spotlight is not on you. That's the things that people don't really see.
Right.
And then, all of a sudden, quote unquote, they
Overnight
see
success.
overnight success. And people think like, oh my gosh, like who is this person? They came out of nowhere. But that nowhere were those everyday moments.
Nowhere was in the darkness.
Nowhere was in the
gym.
Yes.
Nowhere was in the back of the classroom and all these different things.
Yeah. So small wins may not look glamorous, right? These are the times when you just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this, but you know what you want to accomplish. So you sacrifice. You sacrifice the time, you sacrifice the friends, you sacrifice the being on social media to actually get your work done. And it's not the most picturesque moment where people want to, photo this to
those
post.
are not the posting moments.
Yeah. But they are the foundation, though. They are the foundation of what builds your confidence. It builds your momentum and eventually your long-term success. And here's the secret, though. The more you stack up those small wins.
Yes.
The
compounding interest,
compounding
baby.
interest.
Let's go.
Yes, these small wins will lead to bigger opportunities and more doors will begin to open in your life. So, I mean, just a practical example with us, it's like, even with our kids, teaching them how to read, right? In the age that they are right now. You don't just start off with like, hey, here's a book, read it, right? You start off with like little words at a time. ABC, start off with the letters, right? And then you go to like little 2-letter words and 3-letter words and doing those things consistently over and over on a daily basis. Then at the end of the year, people are like, oh my gosh, your kid can read, at 3. And it's just like, it's because we've been doing these things and nobody was giving us a pat on our back or nobody was like, oh my gosh, hey mom, you're doing such a fantastic job. Hey dad, hey parents, what, way to go. And it's like, no, because you have a vision and you want to, you have a vision for your child's future and you want them to grow. So today we're going to be talking about why small wins matter so much, how to start stacking them up in your own life and how to stop underestimating the little progress you're making right now, which
that's what's up. That is what's up. I love how you mentioned it, really compounding, right? Compound interest. This quote usually goes to Albert Einstein, but I'm not sure he's the one that actually was the one to say it. But it says, compound interest, those who know it, earn it, and those who don't, pay it, right? But I always believe compound interest is such a really, it's a part of life, and it's not just about financial, right? And that's exactly what you just shared earlier, whether it's the example with our kids learning to read, their investment, our investment in their education, but them starting off small And then all of a sudden, a few years later, because sometimes for us, it feels like all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, yeah.
Right? Even if you're going through it, it's like, man, a lot of times you can just look up and you realize, oh, this is where I am now, but it didn't start right there. So I love that compounding interest just thought, right? Because I think it touches so many other areas of life.
Yeah. And again, just to highlight the overnight success thing, which we all know there's no such thing as an overnight success. Yeah. I watched a Chosen series, and the main artist, I guess, the main movie star.
Producer or actor?
The actor.
Okay.
That's the word I'm looking for, actor. The one who plays Jesus. He was talking about how people look at him and they're like, oh my gosh, like, it's so awesome that you're doing this. And he mentioned in one of his biographies when I was watching on Netflix that, people see him now, but they don't see the 20 years that he actually was working at these like restaurants, being a waiter, and he was managing like an apartment complex, and living at the apartment complex, so that way he can pay to do like these lessons and all these things. So people don't see that, right? Yeah. But they just see the moment of where he is, and he's like, no, this took 20 years for me to get to this point. But we see him at this moment, and you're just like, wow, he's such a great actor, but you don't realize that that nothing happens overnight. Everybody have to put in the work to get from one level to the next. And we're talking about personal development here. If you want to develop yourself, you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to go run a marathon and then decide, okay, I'm going to do this tomorrow. And then all of a sudden you're a marathon runner, right? Even if you get up and run a marathon the next day, you're not necessarily a marathon runner. You just ran a marathon. Yeah. But if you want to become a runner, you have to do the process, the process of go through it daily and daily. So
it feels like for me the last few years, I think a good starting point is to discuss momentum. Mm-hmm. I think for the last few years, momentum has been a huge part of my understanding. Especially when I think about the entrepreneurship, pathways, there are a lot of folks that, want to do something, or perhaps, again, this is not just entrepreneurship, but this is everything. We want to do something, but a lot of times that thing just stays within our minds, and it stays with us, and we never do it. And so the momentum that we need to create, there's usually something that's kind of driving that or helps us to kick that off. Do you have sort of an experience where you feel like, okay, the vision, or you know what you want to accomplish, you perhaps have an idea of what needs to be done. What are you doing to kind of kickstart that momentum that you need to happen? Because we know that if you have that momentum, it begins to compound. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It begins to roll. So anything that you've done or seen or had that has kind of kickstarted for you that momentum that it was needed? Yeah.
I'm thinking back to playing in college, and I remember, my freshman year, I had a really good year, going in and finishing out with co-freshman of the year. And I remember feeling like I don't want to be co-anything. I wanted to be the thing. And with that, you're talking about momentum. Because I was co-freshman of the year, I had this drive now to like, okay, well, I feel like I got to be better, right? I got to stand out a little bit more. And from that experience of being a co-freshman, I went to a basketball camp the summer of my sophomore year. And then from all the things that I learned from that camp, I came back to campus and I like daily I would work on something from that camp. Yeah. And I remember seeing some success, like when we played pickup and, those moments. Again, these are moments that people didn't see, right? Because it's something that's internal and it's my own drive that's making me do this. And after, the summer went on and had a great summer, had a good workout, I felt personally that I was becoming better because of the small wins that I was seeing.
Yeah.
And then my coaches started noticing it because at this point I was implementing the things that I worked on in the summer. Now the season started and things are going well, but for me, again, building on momentum, I'm like, I don't just want things to go well. I want things to be great. So then how I started making things to be even more great for me was after each game, the next day at practice, I would stay back 15 to 20 minutes after practice and think about what didn't go well in the last game.
So right now, y'all, you're entering into the mind of a pro. This is for those that don't know. Sophia is a 10-year WNBA veteran, right?
Yes.
2-3-time All-Star, and number 4 drafted, right? And all
things.
All world, right? Accomplished a lot. So this is really cool to hear, to share sort of your the understanding that you had in trying to make yourself better,
right?
And what are things that kind of kicked you off?
Yeah. So then after each game, I would come back and the next day and just kind of be in the gym by myself. When everybody left after practice, we go back in the locker room. And for me, I didn't necessarily needed anyone. I just needed me and my thoughts and figuring out like what this person blocked my shot. Why did they block my shot? Right? Did I shoot the ball too low? Was it not high enough? Or what exactly happened to where I turned this ball over? Why did I do that? I missed the shot. Why did I miss the shot? Did I not jump high enough? Or whatever it may be. And I'm in the gym thinking about that moment and working to make sure that doesn't happen again. Right? So as I kept doing that, I started seeing more and more momentum. But again, this is a moment when nobody would see, right? But people saw in the game when the things that I worked on in those 20 minutes of alone time, and they started seeing that on the court, in the game when the lights and all of that stuff was on. So realizing that those 20 minutes were helping to improve my stats, to improve my my career and all of this. It just kind of helped that momentum to keep growing and make me want to continue because I'm seeing success here, right? So it just kind of made me want to make me continue that whole path, and I kept that up. Throughout my whole WNBA career.
And I think that's a lot. That goes to for a lot of people, right? When we start to see these small wins and we start to see the momentum build, it's easier for us to like keep going.
Yes.
But like that starting point, I want to ask you, like, why did you not want to be anything, or why did you feel like you wanted to be the best or better? Like why?
Yeah. I don't know if that's a personality trait. For me, coming from a third world country and wanting to provide for my family, wanting to help my family get out of a space of not being in poverty. So I kind of had like an internal drive to be the best that I could possibly be, right? And there are moments when you look back in your career or over the season, when you're an athlete and you're like, man, if I had only gone a little bit harder there, I probably would have done better, right? And so I felt like if I had worked a little bit harder, then I probably wouldn't have been anything, right? But if I had just, played a little bit harder, then I could have separated myself. And so that's the drive behind that was I could work harder. So let me see if I put in the work and if I actually work as hard as I possibly could, what would happen.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good. So for you, there was the why behind what captivate or catalyzed your momentum was wanting to see your family be better off and wanting to do better for your family. So that was sort of the why behind the launching point for you, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I grew up in a space where I felt like like things didn't have to be that way, right? And I wanted it to be different. And I mean, I gave my life to Christ at a young age, and hearing about what, you know, the freedom that God brings, and, you know, and all the things that happens when you are a believer, it was just things were not really adding up in my mind. As like, okay, if you are a believer, then these, like, your life should be free, right? So there's a lot that goes on in that went on in that sense, but I wanted to be the best that I can possibly be. That was a huge why for me. Wow. You know, I wanted to be, every time I showed up at practice, I wanted to be the best player every single time. I'm not talking about the game now. I'm talking about
like
in
practice. We're talking about practice.
We're talking about practice.
Talking about practice.
And I loved practicing. I absolutely loved practicing.
You don't hear that a lot.
Yeah. So I wanted to be the best player. If there was a moment whenever your coach doesn't recognize you as being in the gym, you're just like, okay, something is really wrong, right? So I wanted to stand out. So I would take it personally when my teammates kind of like,
love that. I love that. Love practice.
Yeah.
I love practice.
I love practice.
That's such a good thing.
I love practice.
That's such a good thing. The point that I am trying to emphasize here really is about like capturing momentum. And, you know, there's opportunity when we look at, you know, our why, right? Our why can often be a driver for that. But at times, like, we're just kind of we're standing and we're looking at the future, what it could possibly be for us, and we want to get started. We don't know how to get started, but what I want to just kind of have us look at is just like momentum. If we can capture momentum, then it becomes easier for us. And that starting point, you know, there are a number of different ways we can get started. One can be the why, right? Another thing for me, it was around mentorship. A lot of my mentors or people in my life saw things that I wasn't seeing, and they were saying, hey, you know, if you do this, you could get there, right? So that one was one aspect for them identifying it. But another part of it was, now that I agreed with them, like, hey, yeah, that could be cool, and me speaking it out loud now and saying, yeah, that's something that I want to accomplish, now I had accountability. So for me, that was the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things for me in kind of capturing that momentum, or getting to that momentum that I needed to get moving or to get rolling. And it's just like speaking accountability, and that came through relationships. If I spoke something, then that made me feel like, and somebody heard it, right? If you have an idea and you say it out loud and somebody else hears it, then you feel like you have to do something about it.
You feel like you have to do something about it.
And I don't know if that's a personality trait or not, but I think for a lot of people, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that whenever we want to accomplish something and we say it to someone else, even if you don't like think, okay, I'm gonna talk to this person because I want them to hold me accountable. So even it's saying it out loud, you kind of almost like get it out, you know, outside of your body, and begin to even like let those thoughts, like, let you hear yourself saying the thoughts about what it is that you want to accomplish. And I think we talk about momentum, accountability, goal setting, right? You guys probably have heard the term SMART goals before, you know, setting specific goals. SMART means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Those goals that we're talking about small wins here. In order to accomplish something within 5 years, a year, you have to be very specific with what you want to accomplish in a week, not just in a year, right? So let me ask you this: if you do want to accomplish something in the next 2 years, how do you go about with your business and entrepreneur and platform? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so the SMART goals, they are really in alignment to which this process as well that's called OKRs, and it's usually objective and key results, and the objective is the bigger thing, right? So your SMART goals, if you're referencing that, you might have something that's significant that you want to accomplish in this time in a certain period, and then the key results really would be for you to determine what are the things that you are going to focus on that will actually move the needle. And so that's usually how I operate in planning and developing new things. And with our team, we look at what we're trying to do. If we're trying to push a specific product or get a partnership, we think about that and then try to break out all the smaller things that will happen, that needs to happen in order for that big thing to actually take place. Because, right, you look at the big goal, it can be overwhelming. It can make you sit on it even longer, right? And you just get paralyzed. So when you break it down and you start to make it, specific, right? When you start to make it measurable, when you start to make it attainable, when you start to make it actually relevant, like you're not just starting to put things that is, this would be cool, but so I'm gonna
I like to own a yacht.
Yeah.
Like, wait.
Right. You're gonna, if you're not putting it specifically to or making it relevant, it's really going to waste out. It's gonna die out. Your vision and that passion for it is really going to just like fade. And then obviously time bound. A lot of us, really, our team and I, we usually operate in like 2-week sprints, right? What can we define as done in 2 weeks, and how can we break it down so that we can go after it in 2 weeks? And if we get to 2 weeks and we're not done, then we need to evaluate, like, why didn't that work? What were the barriers? Why didn't we accomplish this specific thing? And it's because we didn't we didn't plan well.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
We didn't think all the way through of what it would actually take in order to get there, being specific, being relevant, right? Having the right timeline on it.
Right. That's so good. Is there a reason for the 2 weeks? Like, is there something behind 2 weeks or why 2 weeks? Because I love that. It's like, I feel like maybe a week is too short. Sometimes, you get caught up in things, but like a month is too long because things can get lost. But I just didn't know, like, if there's something behind the 2 weeks.
I think for, I don't know what, different industries probably think of it differently, but I think it has to do with, again, relevance and attainability, right? Can you, 2 weeks, like you just said, 1 week sometimes is pretty short for something that you're trying to get done, right? If we're working on, if we're trying to partner with an organization to build out a mentoring program or something along those lines, and we're expecting for us to have a meeting and figure out what we need to do with the CEO of that organization within the 2 weeks. Is that reasonable? But yeah, maybe. But if it's a large company, is 2 weeks actually going to be feasible, right? So just thinking about it, I think it has to do with the attainability. And most things, I think, can fit within that 2 week span, or you can break it down where it's meaningful enough to do something within that span.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not too far out, right? Where you kind of lose track of what you're actually going for.
Yeah, and then you put it off and be like, okay, I'll do it in 2 weeks, right?
Right.
I'll start it. It's not due for 3 months. I'll start it with 2 weeks left to go, right? And so I love that because we're talking about small wins here, and I think there are moments and there's value in progress, right? But not necessarily perfection. Like if you're saying like you will want to partner with an organization, and the perfection would be like you get the organization and everybody's on board, right? But sometimes we can get our minds so fixated on that that if we don't get that, we feel like we lose.
Failed,
we feel like we failed. But but setting a timeline, okay, this is what we want to get, and the progress in order to get there, you can learn so much over that 2 week period of like, how do you coordinate, Let's make sure we don't say that the next time,
Right.
Like, have you learned any type of lessons when it comes to within these 2 weeks of trying to get something done? How do you guys differentiate between progress and perfection? Do you focus on perfection, or do you?
No, and we do not focus on perfection at all. And again, just to kind of give a background here to the audience, right? I have a small portfolio of companies. The one that I work primarily on typically is working with entrepreneur support organizations, whether that's like chambers or ecosystems that are trying to build up small businesses and so forth. And we try to design programs and tools for them usually. That's where I spend most of my time on. We also have, like e-commerce brands and stuff like that. But for us, we don't focus on perfection because, again, we can get lost in all the minutia of that. We focus on getting something out quickly and then learning from that and then iterating, building on that, especially if it has to deal with like a person or a relationship. You want to get feedback as much as possible because a lot of times you're in your mind building something, working on something, and before you know it, you've built this really what do you call it? Just very fluffy thing that turns out that nobody wants to actually use, nobody actually cares about because it's been in your mind the whole time and you haven't iterated on it because you don't have any feedback. So we try to get things out, even though it's not perfect. We want to get out there, get feedback, iterate on it, and then continue to build.
I love that. I love that you said that sometimes we just keep things in our mind and, like, oh, I want to do that one day. And decide, okay, what did I do? Right. And that's why we're talking about like small wins, because the year can go by and you will look at the big thing and think like, oh my gosh, I can never accomplish that, because you're just looking at the big picture. But if you start making like small goals, setting attainable goals, doing the little things in the dark when nobody's watching you, you can look back at the end of the year and see, like, oh my goodness, like if you take something like reading 15 books a year, how do you accomplish that? Like, oh yeah, I gotta sit down for 2 hours a day and read. But we know you probably don't have enough time to do that. So if you think like, okay, I'm gonna read 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, then at the end of a year, you'll see, like, you'll look back and be like, how much, you'll be so amazed at the progress of how you accomplish those things. So I love that that we're talking about, again, small goals. Go ahead.
I was going to say that I've reflected, especially through some of these conversations. We've talked a lot more I feel like on the professional and even personal development side, but even just like family-wise, I've had a chance to reflect a good amount in the last, year or so, just on some of, especially because we've been having the podcast, right, and having some of these conversations through the podcast. I've had a chance to think back about some of the things that we now do as a family that felt like we would never get here, right? Because of how difficult it could look at the onset of it, or from the forefront. It's crazy, right? Whether it's like, some of the goals for our kids in reading and development, and whether it's, entrepreneurial goals, or whether it's like, doing things like, our devotional with our family and stuff like that. You think over time, like, we've built habits now with these things that if I describe it to someone might say, hey man, that sounds like a lot. How did y'all get there? But it just started like one day at a time.
One day at a time.
Right? Yeah. It just started one day at a time, and we did it. And if we missed a day, we got back to the vision of doing it, and it will just keep building. And now you're here. I'm super proud whenever our kids are going to sleep and I can say, hey, what's a family vision?
Yeah.
And for them to like, speak it out, or when we say, what's our that family verse or something like that, or for them to read it's so cool to see that. But like, I know how difficult it can look from like the outside, saying like, oh man, how did you build up that type of habit? But we just started like one day, and then it just kept building. And
Yeah, and I love that. One of the things right now that we are going through is that we can use as a real life example, which hasn't happened yet. We're actually going through this space and this phase of life is that, our kids are in sports and our both of them are running track, and our daughter right now, she's a little bit not all the way in her mechanics with her track skills. And there are moments when I personally can be like, can get frustrated. And there are times when I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, is she ever going to get it? But in my mind, I know that she's going to get it. Right. And there are days when I'm just kind of like, just give up. It's okay. Just give up. Right. But I know from my past, I know from experiences that you just have to keep chipping away because, and I brought this up because there are days whenever you want to accomplish a big goal at the end of the year, but there are days when you're going to be frustrated, you're going to be discouraged, you're going to feel like might as well, what's the point of doing something, right? But you have a goal at the end, and you almost know that if you give up, then you're not going to get it at all, right? But you just have to keep going, and so I know that our daughter, like her, one of the challenges when she runs, she doesn't really pick up her knees very much when she's running, and you just like, hey, pick up your knees, like but you know that you just have to keep on. We know that we have to keep on practicing with her so that way she can get it. But there are days when she's frustrated, we all frustrated. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, this is just too much for all of us. We should just, sit down and go home. But again, I'm like, okay, but if I stop, then she will never get it. She will absolutely never get it. So I just have to keep going. So that, I hope that's encouraging for some people, like as you're going through things, your goals, your dreams, there'll be days of discouragement. There'll be days when you just like, oh my gosh, like, what is the point? Do I really want to do this? But we know that if you quit, then there's no achievement at all at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, consistency can look like when you like cadence for consistency. Like if you're trying to do something and you do it like 1, 2, 3, 4, like that can be consistent, but you can also be consistent in doing 1, 2, 3. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it can even be slower. 1, 2, right?
Yeah.
That can be consistent. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
That? It can look different for a person, but if you keep that vision in your mind and keep that goal in front of you, some days you're not going to be able to be on that rhythm, but you can get back to it because you know that you have a specific vision in mind.
Yeah, I love that, and there's a scripture that comes to mind where Jesus was talking, and he said that if you're faithful with the little things, then he'll make you ruler over.
That's always in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Like always in the back of my mind. I don't know.
In what way?
Like for real, it makes me think about, we've talked about this in different conversations, but it's like, okay, it's part of the reasons why we have a family vision, and it talks about stewardship, but we are always, like, I'm always thinking about, like, if I've got this small company right now, and I'm not doing the things that I need to do in order to work, God's not going to bless me with a larger company than this, right?
Yeah.
Or if he does with that, then how am I going to steward it well?
Yeah.
That is literally always in the back of my mind. I don't know why.
That's good. I mean, again, like if you can't handle a small company, there's very high chance that you're not going to be able to handle a bigger one.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Probably. But we want the big one immediately, right?
But we all want the big thing. We want to be the superstar. We want to be the Instagram influencer. We want to be all the things, right?
I don't want to be that Instagram influencer.
Okay. Some people do. But in order for us to get to anywhere big time, you have to set small goals. You have to do the work when nobody's watching. You have to set aside the time to make the progress of doing something daily. Or however often your rhythm is to make sure that you accomplish it. But setting those small goals, and you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed of what happens, within a year, within the next 5 years. if you decide like, okay, like say for instance, you want to go get your PhD, that sounds overwhelming, right? Like sometimes I think about that. I'm like 5 years, like I don't want to put in 5 years to do that, because it just sounds so big. But at the end of the day, if you really take take small chunks of it and feel like I'm just going to do one class at a time, right? I'm not just thinking PhD, but at this moment I'm just doing one class, right? So then it makes the reward or that goal seem more attainable, more so than thinking 5 years, because again, 5 years is going to come.
It's going to pass anyways.
You're going to have your PhD or you're not going to have it, right? Depends on what you decide that you're going to do. So I think like even whatever it is that we want to accomplish, you have to, especially if it's a big thing, you have to do it in small bite-sized chunks, or else it will be hard to accomplish it.
That's good.
Yeah. So how we are going to close this up. Remember that anytime you are wanting to achieve anything big, you have to start small. Small wins, it shows that you are progressing one way or the other. It usually gives you the immediate feedback as to like, am I doing this right? You often feel like a sense of achievement also when you accomplish, like if you take your 2-week mark and you feel like your team got the sprint completed.
But you have to, you got to be intentional about it. You got to take the time to see what those small wins are, those small objectives are, those, right? You got to make time to examine that.
Absolutely. And then remember, you got to set SMART goals. Remember what those are?
Yes, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely.
Yes. So remember, you don't have to win the championship today. You just need to win the next play.
Hey.
Ooh, that's really good.
That's so good. Our coach used to say all the time, hey, because with football, each play is average, I think, is like about 4 seconds, right? So it's like these next 4 seconds, right?
Yeah.
These next 4 seconds, right? Don't focus on winning the entire game, but just win this 4 seconds.
Yeah. And that's so good. I mean, I'm glad we finished it up with that quote in that space of being, from an athletic standpoint, just the next play. Just win the next play. Go as hard as you possibly can for the next play. Don't think about like the end of the game, because if you don't win the next play, for basketball, like you can be down 20, right? Because you're just focusing on the end of the game and you're not focusing in the moment. So win the next play, and then those are gonna stack up. The next play, win the next play. So hopefully that encouraged somebody today just to think about the small goals that you're setting, and all you got to do is just win the next one.
Yeah. Let's go for it. Well, thank you again for joining us. Hope this encourages you, like Sophia said. Hey, follow us online and subscribe anywhere that you're listening to your podcast, Relationships in Reason. All right. Talk to you soon.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.